Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be tying the Game Changer fly. I love this fly for bass, pike, even steelhead. But today, just a few simple materials. For the hook, doesn't really matter what you use. I think this is a number 6. Like I said, it doesn't really matter what you use, but you do need a hook with a nice short shank and pretty wide gap. So, most short shank stinger hooks will work just fine. Oops. And now we're just going to be using some 10mm wire shanks that I made. You can buy them or just make them like I do. Okay, so you just want to clamp that shank into your vise. For thread, I'm using black Vivus GSP. That's what I use for every fly. And on this particular feathered Game Changer, we're going to be using Schlepen. We're going to be using olive and white. And you want to find, some pretty big feathers. The thicker ones, the thicker the better. And as you progress up the fly, we're going to be using, I think, 4 10mm shanks and then the hook. So as you progress up the fly, you want to get bigger feathers. So we're going to be using Schlepen, brown, or not brown, olive and white. And also for the filler flash, let me see if I can find it. Take me a minute here. For the filler flash, we're going to be using this large crystal hackle. This is like a silvery gray color. And I think that's large. And then we'll also be using, where'd that go? We'll also be using the same thing in white. This is just a little bit smaller version. And so yeah, let's get tying. So for the first little section is going to just be our tail. And I think for the first section I'm just going to use marabou for the tail. You also need white marabou, I forgot to mention that. But you just want to tie just a little bit, wrap just a little bit on the shank of the hook. For right now, not a whole lot. Okay, get some white marabou. Kind of just pick a marabou plume that isn't really that great. Just something that you'll use for tailing material like this one. Which is fine. And we're going to be kind of making a little bit of a bluegill pattern here. So should be about enough. So you want it to be about twice the length of the shank. So we'll do one nice tight wrap, and another nice tight wrap. Okay. Really lock that down. Trim it. Then you can flip it over, flip the shank over. Do the same thing to the bottom. Now these Game Changers, they're very repetitive flies, Basically, every shank is going to be exactly the same. You just keep getting bigger with the feathers. So, it's going to be a lot of time lapses in this video. It's really not that hard of a fly to tie. It may look complicated at first, but you only need a couple materials. And it is an absolutely amazing fly. So I'm just going to kind of wet this marabou down. Measure it to be the same length. Before I tie it on with a couple tight wraps. And I will be steelhead fishing tomorrow. However, I won't be filming anything. Just because I don't really think that the steelhead are in the big numbers that they should be right now. But after I go steelhead fishing tomorrow, I'm going to be fishing this little pond for some pre-spawn bass, just largemouth, and then maybe also some bluegill. So stay tuned for that. Just whip finish. And that's really all you do for the tail piece. Not very hard. Could put a couple pieces of Flashabou in there, I suppose. But it's not a very hard piece to do. Next, you take your next shank, clamp that in your vise really tight. And now what you do to attach these pieces to each other is you take that little eye, and you see that part right there that kind of sticks out. You just fit the eye of the last shank over the shank that you're going to be tying on now. Okay, then you start your thread. Close your thread over that wire. Just tighten it down. And that just really makes sure that this part isn't going anywhere. It's going to stay where it's supposed to. Okay. Just kind of wrap over that shank a little bit. Cut my thread. Okay, I'm just going to take a little dab of glue. Just put a little bit of glue on the shank here. Just like that. Okay, and you want to wrap your thread fairly far back on the shank, because you don't want to give that tail piece or really any of these shanks any room to move in the back. You want them to just be able to kind of flutter around. You know, you don't want them moving a whole lot. Okay, but anyways, I'm just going to finish wrapping the shank. And I'm going to take my small crystal hackle. You could also use, I think there's something called Blaine's Chocolate, or Blaine Chocolate's Filler Flash, which instead of just being one-sided like this stuff is, it's double-sided. So you get a little bit more on the shank. And basically you just want to make 1, 2, pull it, 3, 4, pull it, and let's do one more for safe measure. Come around, catch it. Okay, tighten that off. Cut it. Go. Wrap back over it a little bit. Okay, now we take our feathers here, and I'm going to do kind of a mix between the white and the olive. So I'm going to pair the two feathers up next to each other. Okay, so I take my white, it's like that. It's not very big. It's not a very wide feather. Okay, then I take my olive. Kind of trim the tips off. Kind of want the olive to be tied in first. That's what I'm gonna do. Pull all your materials back when you wrap over them. Okay. Now we're going to tie in our white feather. things, kind of trim the tags there. Okay, just like that. And we're just going to kind of wrap over that eye just to kind of close it up a little bit. Give us a little bit more room to tie our Schlappen onto. Just like that. Now we just take a hackle plier. Pull all the materials back when you wrap it. Make about 3 or 4 nice wraps. 3. Tie it off. Just kind of wrap over all your materials there. Okay, trim the hackle. And then whip finish. I do about a 7-turn whip finish before I cut the thread. And you can put some glue over that. I don't really like to, but if you want to, go ahead. Then we take our next shank. Do the same thing that we did on the other one. As you can see, it's starting to already look like a little fish. And this is a really realistic fly, especially in the water. I highly recommend this for, bass, pike, and steelhead. It's just a really great all-around pattern. And this is the Blaine Chocolates feathered game changer. Most game changers are actually tied not with Schlappen, they're tied with just hen saddle hackles, which I think Schlappen is a little bit webbier. It's a little bit thicker, and the only problem with Schlappen though is that most of the feathers that you find are all the same size, and it's kind of hard to get a nice taper to it, but it's not too bad. Okay. And like I said, this fly is pretty repetitive. So you're going to put your glue on there. Same thing as we did on the last one. Wrap it back, kind of close up that eye there. Make it so that that thing only has just a little bit of distance just to wiggle around in. You don't want it to follow around the hook. Okay, we are still using the same flash material. Once we get to our hook, then I think we'll go to our bigger flash. But yeah. Okay, and every time you move on to a new shank, do about 1 more wrap of this flash. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull it. Make sure you pull it nice and tight. 6, and we'll do 1 more. Tie it off. Cut it. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with the Schlapin. Just this time we're going to be using a little bit bigger feathers, and we're also going to work down a little bit more on the feather. So we start with a bigger section of the feather than we did on the last one, and that's just going to help achieve our taper that we need. So this is going to be a time lapse. I think from here all the way to the hook, it's just going to be a time lapse. I might not even show it. So yeah, it's basically the same thing. Just make sure that once you go on, it's just going to keep getting bigger, the feathers, and it'll turn out to be a good fly. So see you in a couple minutes. Alright, now guys, as you can see, we're almost done with our fly. We have all of our sections connected. As you can see, it's got a nice taper to it. I did go a little bit aggressive on the back, or I mean on the closest hook here with the material, but that's fine. Doesn't really matter. Just as long as this hook is bigger than that, it's fine. So start your thread. Why didn't I grab my doll scissors? Don't know why. Okay, go back to just a little bit in front of the barb. That's fine. Okay, I've just got a piece of wire here. That's what we're going to be using for our connector. And you want to have a pair of wire cutters on hand. Also, you just want another pair of pliers. Just going to tie that down on the side. Just a few wraps. You just don't really want it too secured. And then take your fly here. Just kind of slip it over. And just do a couple practices, see where it's good and where I think right about there is good. We'll just tie that wire down. What the heck? Something went wrong with my vise. And just clamp that in there. And that wire is going to move around a lot, so put some glue on there. Just going to put a little bit of glue on there. Just like that. Don't let the rest of the fly go into that glue. That will not be good. Okay, set it to the position that you want it to go. And then we're going to get some wire cutters. And we're just going to cut that excess wire off. If I can get it here. Just like that. That took a lot of strength to do. Usually it's not this hard, but pretty sure that was some pretty big wire, so. Okay. Just bend that wire back over. Take a pair of pliers. Take your fly off. Just kind of crimp that loop down. Just to where that wire is. Just kind of grab it with some pliers. Crimp it down. That'll help. When you tie that on, slip the rest of your fly on there. Make some nice tight wraps down on that wire. I mean, like really tight wraps. Really crank on that sucker. Come on with your wire cutters. Cut your wire. wrap over the wire there. And there goes my thread. Whenever you're working with wire, you really gotta be careful when about breaking your thread. Like I just did. I'm gonna put another dab of glue on here. Just make sure that everything is nice and secure. That's kind of a lot, but we need it, so. Glue is definitely a big help when tying these game changers up. It's just kind of a necessity. And I actually think that tomorrow we're going to be fishing a lot of game changers when we go fishing to this pond that I was talking about earlier. One time I was fishing a game changer way back before I started the channel. And I hooked a huge bass on one. But we didn't land it because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't know how to fight a fish on a fly rod. So, yeah, that was a disappointment. But just gotta make sure all that glue dries before we start tying the rest of the fly. And each of these flies should take a pretty long while to tie. I think I took about 30 minutes on this fly. So, it takes a while. Just be patient. And you'll get through it. So now we're going on to our larger filler flash / crystal hackle, whatever you want to call it. And if you think this stuff is too long, when you're done tying this, obviously go in and trim it down. And we want to wrap about almost half the hook shank in this. 2, 3, 4, pull, 1, 2, ow, cut myself on the hook, 2, just gotta wrap my thread a little bit forward, and about 8 wraps should be enough, should be sufficient, no pun intended. Okay, tie that off, wrap back over a little bit. And I think it could be trimmed a little bit. Not a whole lot though. Just kind of here and there. Okay, and now we're going to pick the 2 biggest of the feathers that we have. So I've got an olive and a white. And kind of at the last hook or the last shank, you want to start adding this kind of fluffier stuff to it. It just adds a little bit more mass and helps the fly swim a little bit better. And I thought I had a white schlapper feather picked out, but I guess not. So I had to look in here and pick one out. This one. No, it's too short. Let's see. Oh, looks pretty good. That's a very large feather, which is exactly what we want. Okay, tie both of the feathers in with the tips. nice and tight. Like I said, you're going to want some of the fluffier stuff in this portion of the fly. Really just the last couple portions of the fly. You want some of that fluffier stuff. Okay, and basically you're just going to wrap forward. And normally on most of my feathered game changers, I'll put some sort of accent color on the front. Like, I don't know, maybe I would do a chartreuse one on this because I kind of was aiming for a little bit of a bluegill pattern for this fly. So I might put some chartreuse on the front, maybe some blue. Also maybe some black. But really it can be whatever you want, so. Or if you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, I'm just going to tie that off. Kind of trap some of those hackles there. Just kind of get in there, pick some of those loose. Tie off your feathers. Cut your feathers. And you don't really want much of a head on this, so I think I might put in a little accent color here. Do I have any chartreuse? I think a good chartreuse would be a really good color to put in here, but I don't know if I have any. Let's see here. What do I got? What do I got? You know what? I have a good idea. Let's make a little mix fly here, so I'm going to put some chartreuse laser dub in here with a dubbing loop. So make a short little dubbing loop. Actually, let's not do a dubbing loop. Let's just lay it on there. Okay. We're just gonna put some on the top, put some on the bottom. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. This might give this fly a little bit more of a bluegill look to it. Then again, maybe not, but still be a cool fly. And really, you can do anything you want with game changers. You know, there isn't really a specific pattern. There's a ton of different game changers out there. You know, you can do anything with them, like I just said. So really just play around with them, you know, use a bunch of different materials. It isn't really a specific pattern. So like I said, do what you want with them. I feel like one time I put a deer hair head on one of them, and that made a pretty cool fly. So, you know, basically just try a bunch of different things, put a bunch of different stuff on them, see what you like. Don't let me tell you what to do. Just gonna put a little bit more on the bottom. Might have overcrowded that eye of the hook a little bit. Wrap back over there. So I'm going to take some of that stuff off. Okay, just make a nice head on it. Look at it. I like it kind of like that. Now I'll just whip finish. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with this one today. Make sure it's all good. Trim it. Take it out, kind of look it over. Get a little toothbrush, kind of brush some of that stuff out. And there you have a finished Game Changer fly. This thing is really awesome. I actually kind of like it a lot. And so yeah, that is the Game Changer. I hope you like it. Stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.